There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalyce Cluff, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the wild Mustang. Hey guys, thank you for being here. Today I talk with Dunn, and if you want to get into some of the deeper aspects and some of the more spiritual, mental, emotional components of good horsemanship, this is the place to start. This is the first discussion that we're going to do in a series of discussions we're going to have together, really delving into some of the things that horses have taught us and into a lot of Justin's work. If you are interested in this material, I highly suggest you go check out his YouTube channel and subscribe to it. He is creating videos on a regular basis that are really bringing ideas into the world of horsemanship that are going to benefit everybody who is willing to learn from him. So I hope you enjoy this episode. It's pretty long, but if you make it to the end, I think it will be well worth your time. And we have some fun moments in here as well. So check it out. And most especially, if there's something that you hear in this episode that you just really love, you want to learn more about, that points out something that you might be struggling with, please let us know. And we will work to create an episode where we can really focus on those things that our listeners want to hear. We're really excited for this, and we hope that you guys will join us.
So what are we going to talk about today? Something good?
Yeah, I mean, I was going through all your notes. I was like, oh man, it's a
It's
lot
deep.
here. Yeah, it's
It's
a
deep.
lot.
You
Yeah,
know,
I
I,
was thinking,
oh, go ahead.
no, you go.
Well, I was thinking people that want to get into Mustangs, they really don't, they miss one important step, I think. And if I had to
Mm-hmm.
pin it down, it's to study themselves in horsemanship.
Yeah.
And Mustangs are the best accountability partner for that. And then they've got to also understand some other things that I wasn't necessarily aware of, 2 decades ago. And that's laws of the universe. These principles that govern the heavens, the sky, the earth, the water, the fire, the air,
Yeah.
all have to be understood and taken into account to really coexist with the Mustang efficiently and effectively to grow in consciousness. Because both horse and human are growing in a consciousness or an
Right.
awareness. It's the
Mm-hmm.
single most important skill anyone could develop. So I think let's like dance around that a little bit and then dive into some other things if you want. But hey, it's your show, Shalyce. You tell me what you want to talk about.
Hey, I'm pretty open. I just, talking about horses and, yep, that's kind of where it's at. Mustangs, how they help
Yeah.
us, things we learn from them. That's anything in that realm I'm game for.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people getting interested in Mustangs, of course, because I'm seeing a lot of people come to me that I never would have thought would come to me and ask questions
Really?
from like different disciplines, like the English world, we'll call it, the hunter, jumper, dressage. Of course, it may just be my location and it may be where I'm vibrating at these days, kind
Right.
of talking about things that I used to not talk about. And it's going to attract different crowd. But I really like the type of individuals that are getting attracted to Mustangs, especially, but
Mm-hmm.
horsemanship in general, forming a horsemanship community rather than an industry as it once was,
Right.
utilizing horses for work and,
Yeah.
plowing and doing stuff like that. Now it's more companionship, self discovery, self mastery, and then humane treatment of our horses, which there was a time there that they weren't treated very humanely at all, and there's still some
Right.
spots of that in certain disciplines. I guess we could call
Yeah.
disciplines or industries, but
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, I think people want. Well, I know they need it, but people want to become better people, and through horsemanship is like a conduit for that to happen.
Yeah. And I think one thing we have today is we kind of have the room to not have to use horses for, work or to provide for our living or to plow our fields or whatever. So they are taking on that different role. But maybe we're still kind of holding on to some of those practices when it was like life or death, like we have to get this horse trained and out in the field. So coming, and you talk about perspective, so maybe that's a good place to start, but I do think we're coming from a very different perspective as far as our interactions with horses go, and even maybe the needs that we have or would benefit us in terms of horses.
Well, what's really interesting is horses. The number of horses in America has been in decline.
Mm-hmm.
The last numbers I looked at were like 9 million horses, and then I looked again years later. I mean, I guess the oldest numbers that I knew were 9 million, and the latest that I looked was 6 million. So it's a
Hmm.
decrease of 3 million horses in the
It's a
USA.
big decrease. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it went from 2.5 million horse owners down to 1.5 million in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So that's telling us it's getting less accessible,
Yeah.
and the people that are getting into horses, there's always an outgoing and an incoming and a breathing in and out, so to speak. So people
Right.
coming into horses, they're of a different mindset than the ones that are going out. That's what I'm noticing. So I
Yeah.
think there's more quality coming in now rather than what used to be. More quality people, more quality horsemanship along the lines of trying to become better with horses, as far as ascending and conscious awareness, self healing, self discipline, all the practices that it takes to develop a relationship with a
Mm,
Mustang. Um,
yeah.
those are just really getting attractive to people that otherwise wouldn't have been attracted to horses. Like I can remember back, gosh, Shalyce, back when I was in Colorado and I was training a lot of horses. I was doing up to 10 horses a day,
Oh wow,
five,
that's a lot.
5, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And I remember people calling me and saying, I just can't train my horse.
Yeah.
And what they were saying is they were watching other people how they did it, and they were not in alignment with that. I
Yeah.
can't whip my horse, they would say. And I
Yeah.
said, well, if you're bringing your horse here for me to whip him, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
And I had to change their mindset and their perspective,
Yeah.
because what they had perceived in horse training was dominance, forced submission, forced
Right.
compliance,
Yeah.
uh,
Super common.
through pain and fear. And that's been a long time ago, I
Mm-hmm.
guess 18 years ago. But it's kind of one of those things now. I'm seeing people coming to me and saying, hey, I want to train my own horse, but I want to do it in a manner that's going to enrich the life of the horse, enrich my life together. And
Yeah.
that is quality.
Yeah. I mean, I think that resonates with a lot of my experiences. I had this crazy idea, got this Mustang, thinking I knew what I was doing from when I was 17 or whatever. And the things that you would see, I don't think it is as common like you say, but I definitely saw some pretty wild training practices, even with Mustangs. One that stands out that I've probably talked about before is some trainers that were saying to get the halter on, they would sit there and just like spray the horse with water till they could get the halter on. And so some of those things were, yeah, you kind of have to step back and reflect on like, does this seem or feel right? And I think that's one thing, because you were really like a huge mentor for me when I got my first Mustang, and that was something that really drew me to you. Were two things. One was that you were doing it in a way that I could like feel good about, and like quite honestly, whether it was like I just didn't have the motivation, but I don't feel like I could have controlled my first Mustang. I'm like, she was more powerful than me. I'm sure I could have bought stuff that could have helped. But that was one thing where it was like, yeah, it's not about control. It's kind of working with the horse, understanding the horse. And then the other thing that like was a huge changer for me was, I think it was the first time we met, and you basically were like, you can train your own horse. Like it's not a big deal. And I think we have this idea out there that there's these people who have these magic powers or this knowledge or the strength that can kind of, I don't know if we want to say save us from the experience. I don't know that I would say saving, but kind of come in and rescue us from the hard work and turn it into a simple process where we can come take this horse back to us being submissive and, kind of broken, a word that we use a lot with horses, and to now have a broken horse that we can do whatever we want with, which, I kind of did want my horse to do what I wanted. And so it was a long process for me, but that change in perspective that I got from you was like a huge game changer for me.
Yeah, the programming and conditioning that we are subjected to at very young ages, land of convenience, done
Yeah.
for you type things, they spill over into,
Instantaneous.
yeah, they
Yeah.
spill over into everything. Our health, our wealth, our
Mm-hmm.
relationships, our happiness, our spirituality. And horsemanship is one of those things that you can break away from that programming and conditioning. And a
Yeah.
person can actually study themselves with a horse by going inward and assessing the four things I talk about in my book, which are thoughts, emotions, attitude, action. Present that to the horse, observe feedback from the horse, make necessary changes, present again. Then we start to, in time, develop an interactive system we've talked about before, where you can
Right.
get predictable and desirable results in ourselves and our horses. So as the growing in the relationship starts to happen, people start to reveal things from within that about themselves, which is called self-discovery, and then they can make changes as necessary, which is self-mastery. And then an ascension process starts to happen in both horse and human. So the horse starts to see what you're doing. They start to go, oh, you're trying to become a better person. You're actually giving me a voice. You're actually wanting me to help you, help me help you. And then it's a feedback loop. The thoughts, emotions, attitude, action are shared in horse and human because they have thoughts, they have
Right.
emotions, they have attitude, they have actions. And
Yeah.
then the reflections of their body are determining what they are going on in their mind, what they're thinking, and then vice versa. So the inner becomes outer, the outer becomes inner, and then there's a feedback loop on three different planes of existence, the mental plane, the physical plane, and the spiritual plane. And when a person starts to understand those and starts to utilize those to their advantage, the horse picks up on it. The horse is
Yeah.
there. They're already there. They understand the mental, physical, and spiritual plane to a degree, but in a class. So it's kind of like once a person starts to uncover and explore this uniquely between the horse and human, this is the revealing I'm talking about. This is the experiential learning, the growth process that can't be done by someone else. You can't take your horse
Yeah.
to a trainer and then have them come back and experience the very things I'm explaining. It's a
Right.
growth process. It's like a plant. You plant it in the ground, it has a seed, it germinates, it starts its growth process, it pierces the earth, and then it goes into the
Yeah.
air and the sun, and then it grows. That's the
And I
process.
Yeah, and I think that perspective right there is like really the starting place to look at it. Like when I started, it was always an end goal. Now, when I look back on it, like I can just see this tremendous growth that took place, not just in my horsemanship, and I would say more so outside of horsemanship, where it was like initiated maybe with my Mustang, but the growth really took place, in my outside world, or in the world where we have human interactions and we're living day to day. But it was, like you say, through that process of learning instead of just wanting an outcome at the end, um, that I gained a lot of that, but I didn't really like it in the process because a lot of times, like, I felt like I was failing or I couldn't do it or I was incapable. A lot of the stories we tell ourselves. Um, and so, like, at the beginning, I really just wanted to reach the end goal. Like, that's all I wanted. I didn't really want to go through that process. So I think that's really where perspective change starts, is maybe moving from let's reach this end goal to like what growth might take place here.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it because, we always want goals. We want a relationship with our horse. We want it to be in life enriching relationship. That's the goal. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, they fall back into what's comfortable through programming and conditioning. It's
Right.
retreat into comfort. And see, horses don't necessarily do that. They'll push through a struggle. They'll push through a pain because they know on the other side of it is where they want to be. They'll cross a creek to get to better grass. a cold rushing creek looks scary to some horses, but the vulnerable ones, in a sense, they're vulnerable because they'll put themselves into a position of danger or struggle
Mm-hmm.
for the betterment
Yeah.
of themselves and the herd. So they don't if all horses did kind of like what humans are programmed and conditioned to do, to fall back into comfort, they'd probably never leave a certain area
Yeah.
to go and get better, get something better. And that's what the programming and conditioning has done to a lot of people in America.
Yeah.
It's really easy to fall back into comfort and watch TV when you should be out there, doing something.
Yeah. No, I think
uh,
that's huge. Yeah.
yeah.
Because we do have such a high level degree of comfort. Like there's very little we have to do to stay alive that's uncomfortable. Maybe go to work, but a lot of other things we just have such a high level of comfort that it has to be intentional. Whereas I think in the past, like life just was uncomfortable.
Well, and then that's perspective again, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a balance in everything. So if we look back at like 100 years ago, where you had to hitch up a horse to go to town,
Mm-hmm.
well, you didn't have to change your oil, you didn't have to fix a flat tire, you didn't have
Yeah.
to pay insurance, you didn't have to do all the other things.
Yeah.
So there's a trade-off, there's a balance.
Mm. Yeah.
In horsemanship, kind of like today, we have horses that stand around more than they don't.
Yeah.
So they're, in the older days of the industry of horses, you had war fighters riding horses to go fight war. Today we have horses that are backyard, a lot of backyard ornaments, I could call them, but there's a lot of value in even that. And
Right.
we can fall back into comfort of, well, I don't have anybody shooting at me while I'm trying to train this horse, in some
Yeah.
regards. But I think if we look at it as mental, it's what you
Mm.
think about the experience. What you believe is going to dictate your experience. So if we think
Yeah.
we are struggling, we probably are. But if we look at a struggle as something, yeah, I need to go through this. I actually want to go through this struggle, because once you overcome that struggle, it's where you find joy. You're a victor instead of a victim of defeat. You're triumphant. You crossed a threshold into something like, okay, I'm getting the hang of this. Now there's a system. We're going to develop skills. We're going to have some experience, and then we're going to overcome challenges. And if the challenge is too big, it's probably because we moved too soon, too fast, didn't have the skill or the experience, and the balance got off. So if we just take a step back and look at it from a different perspective, maybe, or a broader view, we can address the issue and then move forward. Horses are awesome at helping us do that, because if we're watching ourselves, watch them, they're watching us. We're getting deeper understandings of the horse. They're getting deeper understandings of us. And then we can maneuver, make changes as necessary, and maneuver toward what we desire in a harmonious, which is an agreement and balanced way. So horses pick up on that, and there's these laws of nature I spoke of in the first part of this podcast. And we'll use a law of energy transmutation. So energy, you can't create it or destroy it. It just changes forms. That's science.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are really wanting to put science to horsemanship. So let's start doing it. If you've got
Yeah.
a thought that comes in, and let's just say it's triggering an emotion that you don't want, and then an attitude you don't want, and then an action you don't want, and then your horse picks up on it like, well, I don't want that either. We as humans have the power to analyze our thoughts, transmute that energy into a different thought, different emotion, different attitude, different action. And then it's transformative. It's a something the horse picks up on very quickly. So I'll give you kind of an example. I have a lot of clients, they'll get frustrated. That's the term they'll use when a horse won't do something.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, did you ask him to do it? And they're like, yeah, I think. Then they start questioning, well, wait, maybe I was trying to force him to do it. Maybe I was trying to make him do it. And it's like, yeah, well, how about ask? Take that same energy, transmute it into, rather than forcing to comply, asking to comply, create willingness, draw them to you. It's like breathing. You
Mm-hmm.
breathe in air and you give out the breath. You don't take and keep it. It's give and receive. So if you give something to the horse, he will receive something from the horse. And we have the power to do that. So a frustration will change to gratitude, or it'll change to happiness. You can actually change it in the mental first, and it'll come true in the physical. So that mental plane is where it starts. The
Mm-hmm.
physical is where you get to reality. And then the ascension even comes higher when you go into the spiritual. And it's understanding the essence. It's the sense and understanding merged together. So you can get a sense of horsemanship by watching a video or listening to this podcast. You can get a sense of it. Then you
Yeah.
can take that and you can go in with your horse. You can develop the unique relationship that we all want between our horse and us. And you can manifest those mental thoughts into physical reality. Wherever we think and do, we become. So the feminine energy is kind of thinking, the masculine energy is doing, and we all possess both of those energies. So transmuting either one at the proper time, you create a reality that you envisioned. That's what separates us from the animal, I believe, is the imagination, the divine
Yeah.
mind, the ability to analyze our own
For better
thoughts.
or worse sometimes.
Yeah. And if we master ourselves,
Hmm.
and our horses will help us do it because it only benefits them. See, this game of life, we only need to learn two things, in case you didn't know. The two things are how to not get hurt and how to benefit. That's what horses do when they're hit the ground in the wild. Wild Mustang horse teaches their babies, hey, here's how you don't get hurt. Here's how you benefit. That's it.
Yeah.
I
Huh.
mean, there's some intricacies to it, but it's pretty common sense.
Yeah.
It's like, what equipment? You said something earlier. You said you probably could have bought some equipment to help you. But what equipment does is an extension of our mental and physical and spiritual plane. That's
Yeah.
all it is. That's we can just take two things. And I always pick on the bit, the bitted bridle, because I
Hmm.
happen to know a little bit about bitless bridles. And then
Yeah.
they're both the same. But if you look at polarity, one is over here, one is over here. On the polarity scale, they're different degrees. They're exact same thing, but they're at different degrees. Just like nature. Everything in nature is the same thing. It's just different degrees. So like temperature, hot and cold, those are the exact same thing. They're just different degrees. Light and
Hmm.
dark, same thing, different degrees. So we'll take a bitted bridle, bitless bridle. They can be used the exact same way. There's just one big difference. We've taken a metal object and placed it in the mouth of a horse.
Hmm.
And then how do we use it? Can a person
Yeah.
use it correctly? I would say yes.
Yeah.
If all of the other variables in the equation line up to equal the outcome that we are desiring, which is desirable behavior. So
Hmm.
I don't necessarily pick on the person using a bit in a horse's mouth. I pick on the way it's manifesting into reality. What are they thinking? That, okay, I'm going to use this bit or this piece of equipment to correct a behavior by forcing submission with pain.
Yeah.
Well, what is that going to do in long-term sustainability? The law of compensation, cause and effect. We could even call it karma. What goes around comes around. You start hurting or irritating or causing an aversion on a horse, time in time, it will come back. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's not desirable. So back to comparing a bitless and a bitted bridle, the fundamentals and concepts behind the bitless bridle are not to obstruct, not to irritate, not to cause any type of aversion in developing this relationship on the mental, physical, and spiritual planes. So the fundamentals and concepts behind this piece of equipment will not interfere with what our goal of enriching the horse life and our life. It will never impede that, ever.
Yeah.
Or it actually gives you such a large margin of error, you have time to course correct. Let me put it that
Yeah.
way. Because in the hands of a wrong person, anything can be used wrong, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like, let's think this through. What do we truly want? Do we want to ascend in conscious awareness? What is going to impede that process? And if we're adding in equipment, are we going to add in spurs? Are we going to add in whips? Are we going to add in abusive, tactics to force submission, ropes and tarps and all these things that, I've even can go on into the depths of the most inhumane things you could possibly imagine, and it involves bicycle chains and barbed wire. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
However, at that person's level of understanding, the low level of consciousness, they think that that's okay.
Yeah.
However, the quality of people that are coming into horsemanship now, they are so far above that it's only going to be getting better. And a podcast like this is so beneficial because it sheds light on things that should be obvious, but they've been
Yeah.
hidden. They've been hidden for specific reasons. A horse industry wants to sell products, so they're not going to tell
Right.
you the good. They'll tell you the good. They won't tell you the bad and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that struggle is real, and we have to go
Yeah.
through that. So even where we are today and where I was 2 decades ago, I had to go through this struggle, and I'm thankful for it. I got to see the contrast of what was and what is and what can be. And horses are the best accountability partner in that, in the microcosm, to help us in the macrocosm, away from the horse. So yeah,
Right.
it's super good that people are starting to talk about this on podcasts and starting to research and then try to change their own perspective
Yeah.
and implement it into their horsemanship to really perceive the truth, the honest truth, because that's what horses will give us. And then they experience it and feel it and think different thoughts, feel different feelings, and become what it is they mostly dream about and desire. It's that real.
Just as you were talking about the bit, one thing I think a lot of people have really good intentions, but just going back to the idea that we're always growing. And again, like I agree with you that using a bit, someone can do that in a totally healthy, good way for their horse. But I think the danger is knowing that we can kind of fall back on the control. And especially if we don't have really high levels of emotional regulation, which I think is really hard to achieve. So, I think you can go in with a horse using a bit and think, I'm going to use it gently and just use it as a guide. And then we might get frustrated, and then that tool turns into something different than what we ever intended to use it as. Because, we're still human and learning and growing. And I think for me, one cool thing about the bitless bridle, which I also use, is it forced me to, like, I couldn't rely on that tool. Like, I had to rely on myself. And like you talk about with the horse being an accountability partner, or kind of magnifying the things that, or just highlighting the things that maybe we need to work on, or the areas where we can grow. That was something for me that, like, deciding to go bitless helped me with, because like you can't really fake it, you kind of have to put in the work. You have to get yourself in the right mindset. You have to build that relationship with your horse, or it doesn't, work as well as a stronger and stronger bit might, where you can just say, all right, you're not doing what I want. I'm going to get something stronger so that I can force you to do what I want you to do right now.
Yeah, and I've had to kind of explain this to people too. The bitless bridle, I love it, but it's so elementary in the relationship at most points of my horsemanship.
Yeah.
I have to continue to use it because I teach people with it. The students that come to ride my horses
Yeah.
utilize it. But I caution them, like, do not think that this bitless bridle is the cure all or the fix all. It's an extension of your body. That's all. It's so you don't have to lean down there and touch your horse's face with your own hand. In fact, I did do that. I've done that many times. Lean over and just push the horse's face to see,
Mm-hmm.
can it be done? And absolutely it can be done. Is it practical? No. To sit
Yeah.
and stay centered and have an extension of your arms is what a bitless bridle is. And we depend on it less and less as time goes on. You're going to start riding with your mind, your seat, your legs, and then you're going to start depending less on your legs, depend less on your seat, and more on your mind. Your body will naturally, subconsciously, through training consciously, which is the masculine doing, you subconsciously, the feminine energy, will naturally train on its own. So you're consciously doing and becoming to where you don't even have to consciously think about it, and it's happening. So that's how mind to mind goes. Whenever I ascend in consciousness with a horse, start to finish, and we're never finished, but start to getting up into the spiritual levels. We're thinking together. We're thinking so fast together, which is, it's actually, it's opposite of what you would think. If you think about a car tire spinning is 80 miles an hour, and then you take a picture of it, it looks like it's still. Or you even look at it, it doesn't look like it's moving, but it's spinning so fast. That is the spiritual level of horsemanship, where your thinking is so fast, it feels slow. It flows. It's not hurried. It's not stress. You're not tense. You're breathing good. Your muscles are moving in accordance with the movement of the horse's movement. And people will describe it as unity. And unity is a good word because you're moving as one. Those are extensions of your body. The horse's legs are your legs. Your breathing is one and the same. Your heart rate is one and the same. Your mind to mind is there. So you can think, and this is the beautiful art, sacred art of horsemanship. I'm getting ready to dump it on you right now.
Okay.
This is where we're trying to ascend to, this right here.
If you guys want to learn more about concepts like the sacred art of horsemanship, take a minute and go subscribe to Justin's channel on YouTube. It's at American Mustang School. He has all kinds of content on there that will help you in your horsemanship and help you in your life. So just pause this episode for a minute, hop on over there, subscribe, and then start binging on the videos that he has shared with us. There's a lot of great information there.
When you're on the back of your horse and all outside influences have little to no effect on your feedback loop with you and your horse, your thoughts, your emotions, your attitude, your actions, they are in total agreement, alignment, harmony, and balance. Outside influences are there. You're aware of them, but they're secondary. They don't matter. And I'll give you some examples. The deer jumps out. Yeah, you're both aware of it, but the synchronicities in you and your horse are in such alignment. They're spinning, but they don't look like they're spinning. It's fast too. It's so fast, words cannot keep up with the explanation of what's going on. So the bitless bridle, man, I got it. It's there, but it's not a crutch. It's not even a tool anymore. It's just an extension of my body, to where the fingertip pressure of that rein is needed only if it's needed. If I can think and do and become. So I think about picking up on a right rein, I do it and become turning right. If I think and do and become doing that over and over through law of repetition, there'll come a time where I can think about turning right and I don't have to pick up on a right rein. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In your
So
experience, do you think that thought process also changes maybe your behavior in the saddle so that the horse is sensing that?
absolutely. Because you are on a plane of thought, a plane of mental plane, and you've got it tied in so rhythmic and so in alignment with nature that the horse picks up on it. And it's like if you were in their herd and you're moving together in synergy. You see a herd running together. The horse way out on the right and the horse way out on the left, they all move, like a school of fish. That's mind to mind, guys. I mean, I'm just here to tell you it's possible. I've done it. I wrote it in a book. It's hard to understand just reading it or even me explaining it in audible tones, but you can get a sense of it. But until you go and do it and experience, you won't understand it in its depths. I've used the analogy of like if I try to explain eating chocolate ice cream to you and you've never had ice cream, you don't know that it's cold, you don't know what chocolate tastes like. I can tell you about it until I'm blue in the face, but you'll get a sense of it, but you won't understand it until you go experience it and get the essence of it. And then when that merges, you know it rather than know about it. So in horsemanship, you have to experience, you have to go through certain struggles. There is a system, there is a process. I've developed one that works efficiently and effectively for myself. And in addition to adding people into it, it works really well and they get to understand what I'm explaining. But it's such a beautiful thing. The sacred art of horsemanship, that's what I'm kind of calling it now, is where you can ascend in such a high level of consciousness that you're going mind to mind. You're thinking and not even having to actually do. I mean, it's kind of like this. You drive in your car 65 miles an hour down the highway for 20 minutes. You think about all other things except for driving, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've done it. So, I mean, I'm sure people
Yeah,
can relate.
definitely. No, I've done it for sure.
Now a
Or gone
kid,
the wrong place because I'm not thinking about it.
now my
I'm just on
14 year
autopilot.
old, now my 14-year old, she's never driven a car. So she doesn't really understand that yet. So
Yeah, and
in
it's a real
horseman,
struggle when they start
yes. So in
driving.
horsemanship, yeah, because, okay, let's back up. 14 years old, she's driving my truck out on the dirt roads. She's
Hmm.
consciously, the masculine energy, consciously doing,
A lot to
feminine
think about.
thinking
Yeah.
and doing and
Hmm.
becoming. And everything is like very serious, total focus. Outside influences are there, but not really affecting anything until they do. She's like drifting over into the ditch, and I'm like, you need a turn. And she's like, I do. And it's like, yeah, so it's like
Right.
outside influences are starting to come into play. But so there's a balance. Well, in horsemanship, it helps us develop that skill or that awareness that I'm talking about. You start ascending consciously in awareness. A person that's in a low level consciousness of, well, I won't go all the way down into shame or guilt, but let's step up into about fear area. Their
Yeah.
fear
Here's
can
a huge one.
override. Yeah. So
Hmm.
how do we get out of fear? Well, what we've got to do is start understanding we have the power to change energy. We can change fear into courage. I mean, with the snap of
Yeah.
a finger. Now, how do we do it? Well, we got to practice for one. People can get the sense of it, but they won't get the understanding until they go practice it. So you get into horsemanship. You're on the ground with 1,000-pound horse, a wild one that analyzes everything in life and death, takes things very serious, puts you under a microscope. And I love it when they do that. When they put me under a microscope, I get to go, oh, good. I'm fixing to learn what I need to change about myself to become
Mm.
better, to get an interaction
And
with
that
this.
attitude right there is also, I think, key.
Very key. Because once you taste that ice cream, you can't get enough. Once you taste that and your soul starts to grow and you get spiritual energy flowing in, you're not taking it, you're attracting it. It's coming. And the horse is like standing there going, hey, I'm getting ready to dump a lot of this on you. You ready, buddy? And it's like, I think so. Sometimes there's doubt, but then
Hmm.
that doubt, you can turn that into certainty. You can turn it into confidence. And it's through an interactive system. You're developing skills, you're getting experience, and you're overcoming challenges. You go too fast, too soon, horse will let you know. Is it a
Yeah.
bad thing? No. People put value judgments on good and bad all the time. And
Hmm.
that turns into judgment, and judgment leads down into fear. So it's what we got to do is not judge ourselves so harshly. Let's expose ourselves, be vulnerable to the horse, say, here I am in my truest, honest form. I want to attract you to me. What do I do? And then, mechanics come in, but they're so small. I teach a 5-part series. It's a series of 5 questions I'll ask a horse, but I'm asking them to tell me about me more than I'm asking them to do something. Do I need to slow down? Am I going too fast? Do I need to add more pressure to be more deliberate in my question? Pressure is a question. A release of that pressure is a thank you. Those series of there's it's science. Those series of pressures and questions, and timing and rhythm and sequences and starts and stops, they're formula in an equation which are variables to equal an outcome. And we get to play with that. So if we go too fast, too soon, too much pressure, a horse will let you know. Then you can make a change. The emotion that comes from that is transmutable. So like there's people that come to me and they are so judgmental on themselves. They're so hard on
Yeah.
themselves. They'll do
Hmm.
something and the horse responds chaotically, we'll say. I mean, literally
Yeah.
runs away and rips the rope out of their hand. And they're like, judge
Yeah.
themselves as, oh my gosh, I'm so horrible. It's like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
That's okay. Now we got a baseline. You went in hot, heavy, fast. What can we do? Let's try again. Go, act like you're moving in molasses. Let's go slow. It's a polarity. They're the same thing. The pressure. It's either too much or too little. And then there's all different degrees in between. But that's what
Hmm.
horsemanship's about. We get to play with that. And as you
Yeah.
start to develop this awareness of what these hands do, what the legs do on the ground, what your shoulder height is because you're tense. Take a breath, relax the shoulders, bring them down about
Yeah.
4 millimeters. The horse watched your shoulders drop. He watched your breath. He can hear your heartbeat. All these things are compounding as far as information. And then it changes because you can change it. And then the horse notices it and then you notice it. And
Yeah.
then the development stage of the relationship starts to grow and starts to become what it is you desire.
Yeah. I think that first part, just the judgment that we put on ourselves, put on the horse, good, bad, is probably, at least for me, one of the hardest things to overcome. Because, like you've mentioned, it's so ingrained in us to judge everything, to say it's good or bad, whether just I think everything in the world around us, it has that judgment rather than like this is a growing process. See what you learn from it. What are
Well,
strategies that we can use to
well,
over?
words are powerful. So, what if we
Mm-hmm.
just change judgment to assessment? Look at it for what it is. I just want to assess the horse, assess myself, and make
Yeah,
changes.
maybe slowly change our perspective.
Yeah, or quickly. It's kind
Yeah.
of one of those things. If we've been programmed and conditioned in a certain way for many years, it may take a little while to undo those things. However, going into it as an assessment, let's just see what'll happen. I have no preconceived notions of what is going to happen. My desire is to enrich my life, enrich my horse's life.
Mm,
My
yeah.
desire is to explore Earth together and see what gets in the way, discover
Yeah.
what is. I want to see it unfold as it is. I want to experience it in the real, true form that it can be experienced. So if I'm going in with a preconceived notion of something, and I've done it many times, but I'm willing to change, then the discovery is even better. It's like
Yeah.
if you were mining for gold in the mountains, and your preconceived notion is I'm going to dig right here and I'm going to find some gold. Well, you dig and dig and dig and you're not finding anything. Well, you course correct like a foot, and then you dig some more, and boom, there's diamonds. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I was looking for gold. I preconceived that I'm going to find gold, but I
Yeah.
found diamonds. That's what horsemanship is. That's what self discovery is. I'll have a preconceived notion I'm going to go out with my horses and I'm going to do something. Well, the horse may have a different opinion on it. And it's
Right.
okay, because then we start exploring how do we create the desire for the horse to want to do what I desired. And then the
Mm-hmm.
journey of learning that is better than the actual experience you preconceived, not preconceived, you desired, and then it happened. In other
Yeah.
words, I want to get on this horse's back today. That didn't happen, but man, did we make so much other progress in like
Mm,
drawing to me. This horse like wants to be with me, like laid his head on my
yeah.
shoulder and is like really coming to me. And I'd rather do this than put a saddle on. That's the kind of the
Yeah.
example I could give. So those are the things that we're after. Those are the
Yeah.
little nuggets of beauty the horse will reveal to us when we open to assessing the situation and looking at it as its truest form, instead of trying to take and force. And the finer forces of nature, I've discovered, and I haven't really talked openly about this. The finer forces of nature, when they start to get revealed to us, the things I thought were important become less important. The things I didn't even know of become very important. And
Mm-hmm.
and in horsemanship, when that starts to happen, you start to see things that were unseeable before. The space between trees is beautiful, whether rather that I didn't even notice it before. The understanding of the space between me and the horse, that distance, is very valuable. It's very valuable to understand that the the 6 feet that we are apart from each other tells a story. Because when we started, there was 12 feet. When we didn't even know each other, it was thousands of miles.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
that tells stories. So did that horse come to me from thousands of miles away to get 6 feet from me? What is going to happen in that 6 feet distance when I get to touch that wild horse? What ignites? What conception happens at the
Mm-hmm.
first touch? And I said this on a podcast yesterday. I've done that so many times. It is one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever got to have in this life to date, and I never want to
Mm-hmm.
take that from someone else. So I'll get called to people's uh, horse relationship, horse human relationship, their house,
Mm-hmm.
and they pay me lots of money to do some of these things. And I'll go there, and man, I can take that first touch, but I don't. I actually incorporate them in. It's like, okay, now it's your here it is. You're at the
Yeah.
brink of what you need to do. And I'm not going to take this from you, because the distance that horse traveled to get to this very point where you get to do this, that's the finer forces of nature that most people will never experience in this life or understand. And I
Mm-hmm.
have trouble explaining it. I've experienced it many times, and I know what it is. I have trouble telling people what it is, but that's that conception of where your life is just getting ready to explode into the most beautiful experience that could possibly be attained in horsemanship. People can touch domestic horses all the time, no big deal, and they'll probably get a little taste of it. But if I had to put it into a perspective that could be understood, somebody listening to this podcast, it's like eating ice cream with no sugar, and maybe no chocolate, and maybe no. I mean, it's no
Cup of
substance.
milk is what we have now.
It's like
Yeah.
frozen water. That's what you're going
Yeah.
to get. And it's something, of course, and
Yeah.
it's not to be devalued as like I don't want that. It's definitely an experience that's worth having. But to touch a wild Mustang horse for the very first time, and then know that your life is getting ready to be enriched of magnitudes that aren't even fathomable to most people, because we'll circle back to horses are getting less accessible in America. Horse owners
Yeah.
are in decline. So this experience, this gateway into nature, because we are nature. And in case anybody didn't know that, we are nature.
Yeah. Hard to
We
believe sometimes these days, but yeah.
we've been conditioned and programmed out of it through
Mm-hmm.
conveniences. We've been sheltered inside air conditioning when it's hot outside. Those type things. They're great. I'm not knocking them. I actually
Yeah.
enjoy
No,
them.
I appreciate them also.
But I understand the polarity of that. So I went camping for 3 days recently, and 2 nights on Whack-A-Mole River, a canoeing trip with
Oh,
some
nice.
veterans,
Mm-hmm.
and got to experience something, aside of convenience. You have to paddle to make your boat go. You
Yeah.
have to sleep on the
It's
ground.
uncomfortable.
You
Yeah.
have to make a fire to cook, those type things.
Mm-hmm.
I embraced it so much. It's such a relief to know that, oh, wow, this experience is a reminder, a gentle reminder that we are nature. We come from nature.
Yeah.
And the struggle that people describe as a struggle is not a struggle. It's a
Yeah.
piercing of a veil. It's looking behind a curtain. It's testing the fibers of our human existence. We're souls having a human experience. Our soul is here to learn and grow and acquire. We are ascending in that consciousness on the mental, physical, and spiritual plane. Horses are standing there ready and willing to guide us. And I'm not saying they're a god or anything like that, and we don't need to worship them. We need to understand why they're here and how to help us become what it is we truly desire. And that struggle, if this podcast people are listening to it, I'd like to say the struggle is very important. It's very necessary.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I have really learned to embrace. Is I go into a situation with someone and they're in a dark place. I want to let them know, man, this struggle that you think you're in or feel that you're in, it is real.
Yeah.
However, you can come out of that and be stronger, faster, more efficient, more effective at this game we call life, which is to learn not to get hurt and how to benefit. And
Yeah.
that Mustang horse, I really desire for more people to get interaction with, because a lot of people have all these different perspectives on it, Shalyce, and you've heard the good, bad, and ugly of it just as I have. But that wild horse is just fine out there swatting flies, eating grass, procreating. But when they get to come into the human element, invited in correctly, they get to ascend in a consciousness as well. They get to feel feelings they would otherwise have felt. They get to experience thoughts they otherwise would not have thought. They get to be a part of something soul ascension themselves and us. I've seen it in real time. I've seen a child with cancer come in on a Monday and experience in a 1 week evolution what I'm explaining. I've watched my horses
Mm,
get to grow in consciousness and experience love of a
yeah.
magnitude from a child, and then a frequency they start vibrating at, and bring that child up to that frequency and vibration, and it's very healing. That child feels it. They start vibrating at a frequency. Their heart feels it, their mind feels it, their spirit is enhanced. It's more power. The essence gets stronger. And then that merger and that horse and that human, those two souls meeting, that is what is therapeutic horsemanship. That is the sacred art. That is the healing. So people come to me for healing. I'm not consider myself a healer. I don't do it for them. What I do
Right.
is vibrate at a certain frequency, and I help them vibrate at that frequency. Then they heal themselves. That's what horses are doing. That's the gateway. Horses feel that. That's why they're drawn to us. Whenever they know what you're up to and it's true and
Yeah.
honest, they step right into that role and they help that ascension. Um, that's the best way I can describe that. But I feel like I'm rambling on in a
Yeah.
tangent.
No,
And
there's a lot there. I have, notes all over the place of stuff to dig in deeper to, but I mean, I totally agree with you on um just the power of being with a horse. Like you say, I think it's really hard to describe when you do get to a point where you and the horse want to be together and are both benefiting each other. I think is a really cool place to reach. For myself personally, there's still times where I get in the trap of, expectations or judgment, which I think are two of the biggest barriers to having that experience. I don't know if you'd agree with that,
I do.
but
I
yeah,
do. It's polarity, love and hate. They're the same thing, just different degrees. But let's look at it more like love and judgment. So love and judgment, which leads to hate. If we're in judgment when we walk in with a horse, it doesn't even have to be apparent, but subconsciously we've been in judgment.
yeah.
A horse will
I think
help
a
bring
lot of times subconsciously. Like I think most of the time we're not consciously doing it.
right.
At least the stuff that's really hard to overcome is subconscious, I would say.
Right. And we come into that, the horse helps bring that to surface. Now we have to think and do and become, but that is how it surfaces. And then some people, they don't like to look in the mirror. I mean, what they're seeing, they don't like it. And I'm
Well,
here to
I mean,
say,
it's hard, right?
well, I'm here to
When you
say,
look in the mirror, you realize like, oh, I have some responsibility here. I can't put the blame somewhere else. I can't blame the horse anymore. I can't blame my
right,
parents, whatever. I can't blame my financial situation. If we stop and look in the mirror, like that's when you see like this is all a result of the choices I've made along the way,
right,
whether that's horsemanship or life.
right. And what I'm here to say is that is the struggle. That is the beauty. That's what you want. That is something you really want to look at,
Yeah.
because when you look in the mirror and you see something that causes you to cringe, like, I can't believe this, you've already grown. If you're looking at that
Yeah.
as something like, oh, I don't like that, you've already grown at a level to
Yeah.
look at that and go, oh, good, that's not me anymore. I killed that. That's dead. I and you can do it fast. Some people like to hang on to it because their body thinks
I,
it's
I think
comfortable.
you might have a superpower there. I don't know. I find a lot of the reprogramming pretty slow for myself, but
Well, I've just practiced it, and I've
yeah,
helped other people learn how to
consistency.
practice it.
Yeah.
And it's if you want to be kind, you go practice it. If you want to be a fast runner, you go practice it. I mean, it's common sense there. But in horsemanship, whenever you start to bring some of this stuff to the surface through the eyes of a horse, it's like your response would be, well, I'm going to make him run. I'm going to put more pressure. I'm going to get real aggressive. And then you go, wait, I want to transmute that energy, and I'm going to create softness, and I'm going to create an attraction, a willingness in this horse. Then some of those subconscious things surface, and you go,
Hmm.
oh wow, I don't like that about me, but I just changed it, consciously changed it. So then subconsciously it grows and manifests to where your character becomes different. We think and
Yeah.
do, and we become a character. Our horses do too. And we have something to say about that. If a horse is flighty and scared and pulling you around on a rope, it's a direct mirror of what you're doing. So, how do we change it? Well, practice. We present something different. We observe, feedback, continue to make changes. That's the growth, that's the development. And then the subconscious gets trained or changes. Consciously doing changes the subconscious. So then you do it naturally without having to consciously think about it. Your character just manifested into what you desire to be. So if you want to be calm and quiet and thinking, well, you practice it, consciously practice it.
Yeah.
And then the horse will remind you to, hey, you got to keep practicing that. And then it's a beautiful thing, because then subconsciously you'll recognize one day, subconsciously you do it without thinking. It's like driving that
Yeah.
car 65 miles an hour down the highway. You're not thinking about driving, you're thinking about other things. You're subconsciously driving your car.
Yeah.
Same thing with this vehicle we call a body. We can consciously manifest the person we want to be. We have the power. We have the ability.
Yeah.
People say it's
100%.
hard. Well, is it something? Is it
That's what
something you?
I would say.
Is it something you can do? And we
Yeah.
say yes.
Possible. Yes.
Now we have to work hard at it. That's
Yeah.
okay. There's nothing wrong with hard work. I enjoy it,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. And I think just going back to the idea you talked about of struggle, I think is a really important point that maybe we can talk some more about. You kind of talked about being out on the rafting, in what we would call uncomfortable situations. But I mean, and I've had that same experience where those are some of the moments where I felt most elevated in my life, is where things are kind of hard. It is a struggle. You have to, you gotta want the fire to be built and go out and take action. It's not just, you can't just flip on a switch at your house, all that type of stuff. And then just transferring that into the idea of horsemanship. Like you talked about maybe someone having a flighty horse that's just pulling on the lead. And that kind of goes back to that same idea of struggle. And it seems like struggle is the point at which it's kind of the ensign or whatever to say, like, this is where change needs to take place in those points of struggle.
Yeah. I mean, let's use the analogy of a fire. A lot of people would just like to have, like, they're hungry, they want to cook. I'd like to just have the fire already.
Yeah. Go pick up
Well,
some fast food.
Well, when we're camping, we start with these small little twigs, and then we catch that on fire, and then we just continually add smaller twigs to get to bigger twigs, and then the law of compensation, we have a fire. Well, cause and effect. The cause is the little twig, the little fire, and then continuing to do that, the law of repetition, manifests into a big fire. So in horsemanship, you start small, tiny steps, training a horse, training yourself, training a horse. You move too fast too soon, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It may work, but is it long-term
Well,
sustainability?
and I think we live in a world where we try really hard to force it to work
Yeah.
with everything, whether it's preparing food or whether it's controlling our horse or controlling our partner or whatever it may be,
Okay.
or our
So
health. Instead of doing the work for our health, we pop a pill.
yeah. Okay. So then the struggle, it's like, is it really struggle to develop a skill, develop experience, and overcome tiny challenges and build upon that? And people would look at that as a struggle. So I'll just focus on 5 areas, and we'll break them down. So health.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to have a fit body. They want to live long and have a good quality of life. Well, if you eat a Snickers bar every night before bed, you're probably not going to acquire what you desire.
Yeah.
So the struggle would be, well, I have to stop eating a Snickers bar and maybe walk 20 to 30 minutes a day. Okay, do it. Yeah, but it's hard. Okay, well then how about this? Eat half a Snickers bar and walk 10 minutes a day. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
could do that. Okay, now next week, eat a half of that Snickers bar and walk 25 minutes a week or a day. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And so the law of compounding.
Yeah.
That's the secret. That's how you get out of struggle. You break it down into
Yeah.
tinier little pieces, and solve each piece or problem or issue or struggle
Yeah.
until it's no struggle. And then you actually
Yeah.
enjoy what you're doing. And so people put these things, they struggle with time. They put these 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, they put all this
Yeah.
time things.
Instant or close to instant results.
Man, if I had some advice for a young person starting to train a wild horse, don't even worry about days. Don't even count
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. For
You'll make
sure.
more
That.
progress focusing on what's really important, and it's not the time. The time it
Yeah.
takes is the time it takes, and we got to understand that. However, that's not the focus. All
Yeah.
those competitions really did a disservice in a lot of ways because they put pressure, undue pressure on people and horses to accomplish certain things in a time restraint.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's definitely something that I struggled with, all in my mind. There was no reason, like I had no need. I didn't need the horse to feed my family or something. It was all in my mind, but just that idea that it wasn't happening in the time that it looked like everybody else was doing it was something that really set me back and kind of, made me question it to the point where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have horses. Maybe this
no,
isn't meant for me.
then that's that sinking into that low vibrational
Yeah.
frequency of fear, doubt,
Yeah.
confusion,
I had a lot
anxiety.
of that.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then some people, they have a temporary defeat, but it stops them in their tracks, and then they go into shame. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
do it,
Had
and
that
then
too.
and then they start blaming outside things, and it's like, oh, whoa, whoa, we can blame the outside things because that's what you're focusing on. Go inward. You
Yeah.
don't need anything outside. Go inward
I
and
think
present.
blaming the outside things and then also hoping for someone to come in and rescue us or to save
Right.
us. Sending it to the trainer that will fix all the issues that we're having or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Taking the pill that will help us lose weight that's not very healthy.
And backing up to some of the things we talked about already in this podcast, this may help people. They're watching a video of a trainer, and they see them get a result by doing whatever it is they're doing in that particular clip or edited video.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might have worked in that situation at that time, with that rhythm, with that horse, and that day for that situation. That's
Yeah.
an aspect, that's a fractal of what horsemanship is about. What they don't see on those videos are all of the other finer forces of nature I was talking about, of the essence and the understanding, the sense and understanding, and then the essence forming from that. So they get a sense of it by watching a video, but they're not going to get a
Yeah.
true understanding until they go and immerse into it. So
Right.
they try that same technique in the most inopportune time with their horse.
Yeah.
To expect the same outcome is not a
Those
realistic,
expectations. Yeah.
yeah, it's not a realistic expectation. So my advice is you can look outside. There's nothing wrong with it, but bring it into you and then make it your own, true, honest presentation to your horse, and
Yeah.
observe and be willing to change. Observe the feedback from the horse. The reflections in his body are what he's thinking. What he's thinking and doing, he's becoming a character. People ask me, Justin, why are your horses so calm? Well, we practice calmness.
Right.
It's not like, oh, I just did this and bought that product and did that and followed this trainer. No, that individual told me what they needed, and I gave it to
Yeah.
them. When they were uncomfortable, I made them comfortable. If so, my bitless bridle is universal on all my horses. But if one of them was like, I'm not good with this bitless bridle, I would come up with something else
Yeah.
because I want that horse to be comfortable, not irritated, not affected, not obstructed, into growing and develop into the character we're wanting in that
Yeah.
horse.
And I think that's really the starting point is observing the horse's behavior. Like a common one I see
Hold that thought,
is
Shalyce, hold
okay,
on.
go ahead.
The starting point is observing our behavior,
Okay. Yeah.
presenting it to the horse, observing their behavior, making necessary changes in us. See, people try to force the horse to change its behavior.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets out. Cattywampus is what we call it in the world of our world. It gets cattywampus real quick. We want it to stay harmonious. We want it to stay in agreement. We want it
Yeah.
to stay flowing.
Right.
So yeah, you're on the right track.
Yeah, I think you're right that yes, the starting point is really us.
Yeah.
But I guess in the traditional horse world, the starting point is so far from that. Like the starting point is like I think a lot of times it's like get on the horse when it's really far down. Before that, I'm like haltering the horse. But even before that, I think the horse that doesn't even want to be around you, but
And then we
we can
ask why.
ignore all of that and just get on the horse
Yeah, and
or try to.
we got to ask, why does the horse not want to be with me? Why?
Yeah.
Am I vibrating at a frequency that he's picking up on and is repelling? Am I
Yeah.
in a hurry? Am I stressed? Am I short and shallow breathing? Are my shoulders tense? Is my what's going on? Have we made the assessment? The horse
Yeah.
is assessing it, and he's like, "Whoa, I'm not harmonizing with your frequency. You're kicking off, dude. You're in
Yeah.
a hurry for one, and then because I'm not complying with your desired preconceived notions of what you want, now you're frustrated, and now man, this is getting, and it just escalates from there into an undesirable
Yeah.
behavior, and a person that doesn't have the awareness of that, they're
Yeah.
giving that, and they're
No,
not
and
giving it.
yeah, I think you're right that really observing ourselves is the starting point. And I think that starts with, why would the horse want or not want to be around you? And I think a lot of it, if we kind of break it down, is understandable. One thing I think a lot with bitless bridles, like one thing I love about it is my horse will come to the gate and lower her head into it. Whereas when I used a bit, which was when I was younger, like I just remember like you're wrenching the horse's mouth open, you're like holding their head down, trying to get this on there. And so when you compare those two things, like it's not really that big of a secret why they might not want to be around you when it's like you come out, you have these expectations, you start pushing and pulling them around and getting angry when they're not met. I'm like, no wonder they're across the pasture when you come out and they don't want anything to do with you. So yeah, I do agree like 100%. That's a good correction, is that observing ourselves, what we're bringing in, what we feel like internally even really is the starting point for
Well,
good horsemanship. So, you guys have heard us talk a lot about the bitless bridle. And the bitless bridle that both Justin and I use is one that he actually created when he was living in Colorado. I love it. It works great for my horses. If you check out my Instagram or any of my videos and I'm riding, that's what I'm riding in. We're going to include a 10% off link for you guys in the show notes. You can hop on over to Weaver Leather, check it out. And if you decide to get one, get some money off.
let's do a little test for the audience. You ready
Okay.
for this? Okay, so how do we perceive ourselves, and how does the horse perceive us, and how far apart are those? So that is the question.
Mm,
And
yeah.
ultimately, the answer lies within the journey of the horsemanship.
Mm,
And
yeah.
then each horse that you come into contact with, that should be the very first thought that enters every person. How do I perceive myself? How does this horse perceive me? How far apart are those?
Yeah.
And if a person can be honest and true with themselves and present, the horse will give the true and honest feedback. And then you
Yeah.
can find out how far off those perceptions are. And that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And I think a barrier there is most often we're not worried about what the horse thinks of us. We're more worried about what the people around us think of us or think we're doing right or wrong versus
So what?
that reflection of the horse.
Here's the test. Name three animals, just that come to mind.
Dog, cat, horse.
Dog, cat, horse. Okay, so what the mystics or the guys say, the gurus, the three animals that you named represent what you think you are,
Mm-hmm.
what you think people see of you, what you think you are, and what you actually are. So you're
Mm-hmm.
actually a horse.
Oh, well, hey, I'll take that. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, me too, right? So name them again.
Dog, cat, horse.
Okay, so you think people see you. Uh, I may jumble this, but you think people see you as a dog. You want to be a cat. You're actually a horse.
What does that all mean?
You have to go determine what that means. But
Okay. I'm gonna write that down just so I can think about that some more.
Yeah. I did something similar when I was
Yeah,
asked that, but I started with horse,
yeah.
and then it went in. I think it was horse, monkey, um, eagle. It was something like
Oh,
that.
well, hey, an eagle's
Yeah,
not a bad one, also.
yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, just kind of ask that question to yourself,
Hmm.
and how do you perceive yourself? How does the world
Yeah.
perceive you? And
Yeah, and it's
there's a lot.
interesting because I think even that's a disconnect that we think people are thinking about us in this way. And I'm like, one, we don't know how they're thinking about us, but it's still dictating our behavior. Um, and I forgot my other point, but yeah, we don't really know what other people are thinking about us.
I
Um,
like that you said disconnect because I use that a lot in reconnect because
mhm.
horses help us reconnect with who we are and how we play the game of in nature, in life.
Yeah.
Because when you go camping, and I took a veteran with me that didn't bring anything.
Wow.
He didn't bring a sleeping bag. He brought some canned food,
Was
and
he either clueless or just totally amazing in the
he, he's
natural world?
he's amazing. He's one of those top
Yeah.
flight special forces
He
type
could just
guys,
go
and makes do with
make
what
do with what you
comes.
have. Yeah.
And I mean, I brought a tent, so I was like, dude, you can tent with me if you want. And he's like, okay. But I mean, he's just like, he would have slept on the dirt.
Mm,
And he just understands that it's nothing to really worry about.
yeah.
Things are going to be just fine. And,
Yeah.
I really admire that in people because they're so connected with
Yeah.
nature and they watch life unfold as it is and they course correct to
Mm,
benefit and not get hurt.
yeah.
And it's like, is it bad to sleep on the dirt? Horses do it.
Well, a lot of people would say it was, but
Right.
sleep is sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just admire that in people, that they're
Yeah.
connected on a different level and in a different class, and
Mm,
they attract things to them in that level and in that class. And it's like,
yeah.
well, I want that. Well, you have to become that. And how do you do it? You control what you can, your thoughts,
Yeah.
emotions, attitude, action. Just like I wrote in the book, horses share the same thing: thoughts, emotions, attitude, action. That's why they're harmonizing in nature.
Yeah.
They can course correct so efficiently and effectively in the game of life, how to not get hurt, how to
Yeah.
benefit. And I apologize if I repeat things over and over, but sometimes in a podcast, people will hear it and they're like, what, wait, what? And it's like,
Yeah.
well,
No,
let's talk about that.
yeah. No, I think that's just fine. Yeah, but I think just that character trait or attitude or that learned perspective to just kind of go into life understanding like it will be okay versus having these judgments, sleeping on the dirt is bad, or my horse doing this is bad, or me walking my horse when everybody else is riding. That's a big one that
Yeah.
I've done, is bad, you know, versus it's okay, but gosh, it's hard because there is a lot of pressure that again, I think is mostly internal that we can put on ourselves to kind of tell ourselves that it's wrong or bad. Um,
Yeah.
you
Those
know,
value judgments that people place, good and bad, is a conditioning and programming of our society. It's
mm-hmm.
maybe a byproduct of success and lack of success. And it's, it's just one of those things. Don't quit and you didn't fail. I mean, if it took
Mm-hmm.
me 6 months to get a saddle on a horse, so what?
Yeah,
So what?
right. It really doesn't matter in the scheme of things. Probably better as far
Well,
as, I mean, certainly better as far as the horse's experience goes.
well, think of the journey. Think of the journey in 6 months that you experienced with the horse to
Yeah.
get to the saddling point. It almost be as equivalent as the first touch in some cases. Some
Yeah.
people, it's a beautiful experience. It's fine, and there's the judgment and love. I would rather love than be right. Let's just do that. If we think from that perspective, it's like, well, 6 months is great. I love that for you. Good job.
Yeah.
I love that for myself if that's what it was.
Yeah.
Judgment just goes out the window when you transmute that energy and then you think and do and become love. It's like every experience you'll go on from there is loving. It's a loving experience. You'll realize, wow, it took me 6 months to get a saddle on, but man, I'm trail riding 3 days a week and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
as opposed to, well, I got the saddle on in 30 days and now my horse bucks me off every time I want to go do it. Where are we?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a balance. The beautiful thing about horsemanship, horse human relationship, when we talk about these 5 areas of our life, when you ascend in consciousness and start vibrating at a different frequency, and we'll take wealth for example. Most people are conditioned and programmed in this society that money is power, money is the
Wealth,
thing to get.
even. Yeah.
And I totally agree. It is spiritual energy. Money is
Mm-hmm.
spiritual energy. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. It's the same
Yeah.
polarity.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned just recently, or maybe I knew this, but in horsemanship, raising my level of consciousness in horsemanship and becoming in the relationship of mind to mind and horsemanship, I've attracted different people. So sometimes I'll get clients that are wanting to go into horse training. They want to do what I do, and at some level,
Mm-hmm.
but they've got this sense of they're not worth, they're
Mm.
not, their value isn't there to charge the amount required to thrive in this society.
Yeah.
And I'll explain to them, like, look, what qualifies Justin to help someone is that I've solved the problem they're having for myself, and I
Mm.
can show them how to solve it for themselves. That's what qualifies me to charge what I charge. I've attracted people that can afford it. That is something beautiful. I was always going after a customer in the early days. I'm going to go after the client. I'm going to go after. Well,
Mm-hmm.
today I go after no one. I go after me, and I want to
Mm.
ascend higher at a higher frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And I attract people that want that too and are willing to pay the price of what it's worth.
Yeah.
You're only going to be paid in direct proportion of the service you provide. So if someone's life is changed in a manner that exceeds their expectations and helps them attract the things that they desire the most, what price is that worth? So
Mm.
you got to kind of look at that balance. And that's something I wanted to talk about with some listeners. Maybe this is a good platform to share. If they're acquiring knowledge and horsemanship and they're sharing it with others,
Yeah.
that has value, that has
Mm.
extreme value. And if they're following the path of enlightenment, self mastery, we'll call it, and they're discovering how to help horses ascend in their consciousness, and then they're attracting clients that want the same for themselves and their horse.
Yeah.
There's not too many people doing this. I could consider it light worker. You're shedding light into the world. You're shedding light into the horse community. You're shedding light
Yeah.
into people's lives of the 5 areas they want to exceed in, and that health, wealth, spirituality, relationships, happiness. Those areas of their life they want to enhance. Who would not want that? So there's a charge. There's a monetary gain from that. So today, I have very few clients. However, they're very high value clients. And that is really something that has just come about in the last 5 years
Mm.
of going inward and presenting outward and attracting
Yeah.
and manifesting and then attracting what it is I truly desired, however, didn't know how to go and take it. So,
Yeah.
in other words, the give and receive, the breathing in, the breathing out, the law of attraction, I'm here to tell you is very real. The clients I have today, as opposed to the clients I had 20 years ago, they're the exact same. They're just a different degree. They're on a different scale. So, they're both clients. These
Mm-hmm.
clients over here are are the same, but they're at a different degree. So these clients over here. But I have changed. I
Yeah.
have changed to attract that. So the wealth has come in way better than I ever could have imagined in that area. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I want to tell people, because I know that the horses are in decline and I know horse owners are in decline. And I get a lot of people coming and they're saying, how do I charge for this? Well, you can charge for the service that you provide. If you're getting a saddle on a horse in 15 days, that you're not going to get to charge much. But if you're changing someone's life in those 5 areas and you're changing the lives of horses, and the ripple effect of that, resonates to where the value of that increases to where you can charge astronomical figures. Um, the point I'm trying to make is I want to see quality coming into horsemanship. I want to
Yeah.
see people charging and being paid the value that they're providing.
Yeah.
This level that we're at, that we're talking about, this ascension, conscious ascension, this awareness, the skill and experience and developing ability to overcome challenges in horsemanship, they spill over into the macro of your other areas of your life.
Mm-hmm. The world
And
of
that
life.
has such deep meaning, that has so much more value.
Yeah.
But when you can utilize horsemanship to save marriages from divorce, you can save people from unaliving themselves. You can say, and I'm not saying I'm saving them. I'm not a healer. I just already explained that earlier in the podcast. So if anybody's confused on that,
Yeah.
I'm working on me with my horse and including other people in so that they can feel it and see it.
Well, and I think in that process, they are acquiring the skills to save themselves.
Yes,
Because I think, again, that's a myth that we kind of have, that something's going to save us in any of those areas you talked about. Something's going to save our relationship, our health,
right.
our financial situation. I think it's really easy to want a savior or someone to save us. I think it's really easy to want, a pill to fix our health. And I think the reality is, to really truly do it, we have to figure out, kind of like what you said, what do we need to change within ourselves? Where am I creating these results in my life? And I think that is a reality, that we are always creating our life. It's
That's
not
right.
from some outside force that's working against us or for us. It's a result of the choices we're making in those small, little, tiny moments up to the big ones.
Yes, course correction is what we call it. I mean, if I used to be a commercial fisherman, so I'd get in a boat and I'd take off from the port, and I'd have a target where I'm headed.
Yeah.
Now, there's lots of things that are going to try to throw you off course. You say those forces working against or inhibiting. A log may be in the way, floating in the ocean. I'm not going to hit it with a fiberglass boat. I got to go around it.
Yeah.
You hit it with a fiberglass boat, it punctures a hole, you sink. You're not going to make your destination. So those course corrections are important, and we are the ones that do it. So we see a log in our path, in our boat, in our ocean, we got to go around that log. Now it may get real wavy. A storm blew in. It's going to be, man, we're taking water over the bow. It's getting real. We've got to pay attention, and we've got to throttle the throttles back a little bit so we don't beat the boat to pieces. That's okay. The storm's going to happen, and then you're going to get through it. Now it's calm water. Sun came out. We're running. We're going to get to the fishing spot. Everything's good. We made our
Yeah.
destination. But you may not go in a linear straight line, and
Yeah.
that's okay. You got to course correct and change and
And the good
navigate.
analogy for life, that, yeah, those expectations are the judgment, like saying that it's bad that you had to go around a log versus just kind of handling it as it comes. The expectation that this is the course you're taking and you're not going to veer off of it, when really you do need to veer off of it. I think it has some real relevance in our life, in our path, in life in general, in our experience with our horses as well.
Yeah.
That it's probably not going to look like what we anticipate it looking like. It's probably going to look different. And
Well,
that's not a bad thing.
here's a secret. Here's a secret nature revealed to me. If you think it can be great, it'll be greater. If you think it can be bad, it'll be worse. Nature will, that's proof. I promise. Whatever you think it can be,
Yeah.
it is just that simple. It is all mental if you think about it. Everything is mental,
Yeah. So
all
much.
mental.
Yeah.
The
The
universe is
world we
mental.
the world we create, yeah. The world we see, the world we
Yes.
create, and the
Somebody
one we
sees
choose to see.
somebody sees a comet, they could enjoy it and love it. Somebody sees a comet, they get, oh no, I'm scared. I mean, there's one thing has 360 degrees of perspective. And that's why it's so important for all people's perspective. We put value judgments on good and bad, but I'm here to say we need that to understand contrast. We would not understand sunny blue sky day without
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah.
We couldn't. If everything was sunny every day, it's all time sunny. I mean, move
No,
to
that's true.
Alaska,
There's
maybe that's the thing.
something good about the sun coming out after a storm, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So the people putting value judgments, good and bad, on all these things, it's not necessary. It's
Hmm.
not necessary to do that because it's necessary for those things to be. We have to have them, but we get a choice. That's the beauty of it. We get a choice. We can course correct and change. We can look at something different. We can look at our past different today with choice. We
Mm.
can say, I came from a divorce, and we've talked about this,
Yeah.
behind the scenes. And I used to let that run my life, ruin my life.
Yeah.
When my parents divorced at 5 years old, I got a set of new parents on both sides that I didn't ask for. But today, I look back on that, and I'm so thankful that that experience happened because of
Yeah.
what I learned, what I grew through, what came of it. So today, you can determine your experience of how your day is going to go based on your past, how you choose to look at that past experience from a different perspective. It's just that real. So that
Yeah.
past trauma that I used to dwell on and went into a depression over, I could look at it as like, I needed to go through that because I
Right.
wouldn't know today what tomorrow could be. I mean, and I don't want to get all confusing on this, but how we believe determines the experience we're going to have. What we believe determines the experience we're going to have today, in the now, right now. I could dwell on the past and be depressed about it.
Hmm.
I really could. I could look at it from
Yeah.
different perspectives and go through them. And I encourage people to do it because you'll find that, wow, looking at it from maybe my mom's perspective, okay, that makes sense, or my dad's, or vice versa. Like, look at it from different perspectives. And then today, I can go, wow, I have the ability to transmute energy that used to make me feel sad by changing my perspective of how I look at the past to make me feel happy and glad. And
Yeah.
then your future is bright. It's brighter because when something comes along, you can look at it as like, oh, I'll look at it from a different perspective. A person on a boat going out into a storm may turn back and go home and quit. But I was under the impression like, well, this is temporary. I'm going to get through this. I got to hit some hard waves, and the storm's going to last about 6 hours, and we're going to push through and be on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And then fishing's going to be great. And whoa, was it? So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of perspective. It's like, well, you can change the rate of speed you're going on the boat through the storm. From 11 knots down to 7 knots.
Yeah.
Oh, that's much nicer. I can sustain a lot longer at 7 knots going through this storm than 11 knots faster in the same storm. So a person can look at it in different perspectives in their life right here, right now, financially, health wise, spirituality, their relationships with their family. You can slow down a little bit. You can change the rhythm. There's so much power people possess, but they don't know the laws of nature. They can't use them for their advantage to benefit. They can't do it. Horses help us practice in the micro these laws of nature. We'll talk about law of rhythm. Everything has a rhythm. Breathing in, breathing out is rhythmic. Swishing of the tail of a horse is rhythmic.
Yeah.
The pause, the do, those are rhythmic. If I ask a horse a bunch of questions and then I pause, take a breath, relax, and then do it again, and maybe slow it down or speed it up based on the last, that's a rhythm. There's a frequency, a vibration. All
Hmm.
these laws of nature factor in. That's how we control our outer, is controlling the inner. When a thought comes in, affects the emotion, affects the attitude, affects the action,
Right.
manifests into a reality, a real experience.
Yeah.
Horses are the micro practice of that. And then you can do it anywhere. You develop a superpower.
Yeah. I think that is incredibly powerful to be able to more or less alter, your emotions, which, like you say, change your actions, and then your reality is different than what it would have been if you had dived into that thought that was less helpful than
Man,
what
I
you're
tried to
doing.
saddle a horse one time for a client. She wouldn't, she was quiet, but she'd run away. She'd run out from under the saddle right when I'd go to swing it.
Yeah.
And I could touch her with it and slip it on. Great. I know how to train a horse, so we break it down into tiny pieces. We do all that. But if you go to swing it, she run out from under you every single time. I
Hmm.
got frustrated This is years ago. I got so dang
Yeah.
frustrated. I picked up rocks and I threw them as hard as I could away from the horse, of course, and just let that energy out. Put it
Yeah.
into the ground, man. I stomped the ground. I got upset. I got
Yeah.
loud and I got mad and I let it out. And then I transmuted that same energy into peace and quiet. And I went back in there in the round pen and I asked her a 5-part series real quiet and I drew her to me, and the ground tied and I rubbed her to a stop. Took a deep breath and I breathed with her. I picked that saddle up and I swung it up there and I laid it on her back. And she never ran out from under it ever again.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
was the lesson, what was the lesson? I've analyzed this many times of many different horses. Was the lesson that I was throwing the saddle wrong? Was the lesson that no, the lesson was that I was in a wrong state of mind in order for that to happen effectively and efficiently and desirable. And the horse was there to help me. She was saying, hey, I don't mind you putting a saddle on me. I've already showed you that, but man, you need to change. You are frustrated. You're in a hurry. You're thinking other
Hmm.
thoughts. You're not here with me.
Yeah.
So
Do,
when we can control that thought, emotion, attitude, action, and see it in real time with the horse, it can manifest through practice, all of
yeah.
repetition. And you
Do
can
you
do it
think,
anywhere.
yeah. Do you think in that example that there was value in you releasing those emotions? Because I know a lot of times we facilitate between like, you should never be angry, or, again, labeling our emotions good or bad. How do we, in your experience, how can we? Because I do think we need to have negative emotions. I think those tell us something about what's happening in our life, but maybe have them without like diving into them and having them define us and what our life is.
Well, let's talk about negative and positive on the
Mm-hmm.
scale. Negative has been misconception through science. Negative is intuition. Negative is feminine. Negative is good. Um, Positive, that's a masculine. That's a doer. Feminine is intuition. So so when we say, oh, that's negative or that's positive,
Yeah.
you got to have negative. Negative is the taking in. Positive is the giving out. It's the breathing in, the giving out, the breathing out. And there's many perspectives on this topic, but the way I like to think of it is if I've got an energy coming into me, and we call it a negative energy, love and hate are the same thing. They're just different degrees, they're different scales. So when I kicked rocks and I threw rocks and I yelled out and I had a release, it transmuted the frustration into calmness. So it
Mm-hmm.
had to take place. Now people say it's good or bad, whatever. You can give a value judgment to that, but it has to happen. It's the bringing in and the giving out. So the
Yeah.
charge, the bringing in, the negative charge, the intuition, the anger, we could call it, that I was starting, the frustration I started to feel, I had to let that energy get out of me and go
Yeah.
somewhere. Well, there's a positive doing of where it can go. It can go into the earth. It can go into the dirt. I can take that rock and I can throw it, and that's we could call good.
Right.
And then I can transmute that energy right back to the horse in calmness and peace, tranquility, and get the desired results I'm after, and gain further ground faster in the relationship of the understanding, the sense and understanding and the essence of what we're after in this relationship, which is life enrichment, growth in the game of life. The two hearts beating in this unity, the two lungs breathing, set of lungs breathing, the muscles, the blood flowing, the thoughts, the energy, the transmission of energy, which is information between the human body, the horse body, the minds of the horse, the minds of the human. Those transitioning in the feedback loop, harmonizing, agreement, that's what we're enriching. That's the enrichment. That's what we're after. When one of those gets offset, a horse may do that. They may kick out. They kick
Yeah.
out. They don't like what's going on, or maybe a fly bit them. They don't like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
We can look at that and give it a value judgment, good or bad. It probably won't do any good. It probably won't do us anything. But we can look at it as a positive and negative of a coming in and a going out, a manifestation in reality. It's like Yeah, I see the horse got frustrated. I make a change, I present something. Wow, the horse is not frustrating. Let's move on. And it's that harmony, that's a balance. Or maybe I'm doing something to where the horse is comfortable and I do something where the horse is uncomfortable. Okay, I'll change and do something where the horse is comfortable. Okay, there's the balance. Now the horse is uncomfortable because we're climbing up a hill. And I'm asking them to go, continue to go. And then they want to stop. And it's like, well, let's just get to the top of the hill and we'll both stop. And then there's some lateral flexion exercises I can do to manifest comfort and softness and breathe together. Or maybe I'm on the ground and I'm walking up the hill and I'm tired too and the horse is tired too, and we push together and we're leading up and we get to the top. And then I do some manifesting of calmness and comfort with some lateral flexions. And they've been having trouble with me picking up their hooves, but at this moment of comfort, I take the opportunity to pick up a hoof and they allow it. And then I put the hoof back down and then we go and do something else. And then I develop this agreement and this understanding that we're going to harmonize to the benefit of both of us at the proper time for the proper response through feel. And all of these finer forces of nature start to get revealed, that the horse is like, oh, your best interest is my best interest. And you want to be able to pick up my feet to trim my hooves. They don't logic it out like that, but I'm saying this for a podcast from a person listening, driving down the road. I didn't take anything from the horse. I gave something to the horse, and then they gave back to me, and I received something from the horse. It's a give and receive. It's a breathing in. It's a breathing out. I do desire to pick those horses' feet up. Well, it's hooves. We don't have feet. I always trick people with the little question. Do horses have?
I know, you got me with that one.
But I want to pick his hooves up because I know where he's going. He's going to need to get his hooves trimmed, and the people need to do that.
Yeah.
And these are just some examples of how these laws of nature work and how they manifest into a reality of not taking or forcing compliance, forcing submission, where the natural flow state of life happens and we get to watch it unfold and we get to course correct at the time to most benefit us and the horse and nature and the universe. Because the universe, we are all one. We are all connected. Universe, one song. And in horsemanship, you have to understand that that is your micro universe, your microcosm. It's one song you're singing with your horse. And if your internal universe is out of whack and you don't even know, your subconscious, you don't even know, the horse is there to tell you. If you're willing to open eyes and willing to open ears, willing to open and let that come in, and then you can change.
Yeah.
And then you start to develop a superpower where you can go out into the world and the world is your garden. The things come to you you didn't even know existed, and they help you grow even higher in a consciousness. People call it Christ consciousness. And that's what it is. It's a manifestation of ascension from ego into spirituality. Horses help us do that so fast, so efficient, so effective. I only recently, 9 months ago, started a YouTube channel, and I'm making videos for myself to learn how to explain this to other people.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to go to Colorado, where you are, and live in nature for 8 years, uninterrupted by man-made objects and cell phones and internet.
Yeah.
I didn't have a cell phone for 8 years.
Wow. Yeah.
I didn't have internet access for 8 years.
Wow.
I mean, if I did, it was like spinning all the time.
Yeah. A totally different world that you created for yourself through two choices.
Yeah. And so to put that into brief perspective for someone, your outside influences have an effect on us if we allow them to. I could separate from my cell phone today and be just fine.
Yeah.
You know, people want
It is wild, the world that we've moved into, where that statement, some people would be like, I can't do that.
right. And they're right.
But
They're
so
right.
many people throughout time did it. It's possible.
Yes.
Maybe not for you.
Well, and if you think
For the
about
person that's saying that.
if you think about eating food, some people I eat 2 meals a day. Did I always do that? No, I ate 3 meals a day. Now I'm down to 2, sometimes 1. There are people that can go, and I've read about this, and I think it's true. There are people that can go days, weeks, months without eating. They drink, and that's it. Now, I just recently heard a guy did it for 9 days, and he said it. And he said, I used to keep 2 weeks of food stocked in the house because I was in fear that, man, if something happens, I've got to have food. But he went 9 days without eating food, just drinking water. And he realized, wow, I'm not dependent on what I thought I was dependent on.
Hmm. Yeah.
So how do we find these things out? Well, we have to think it, we have to do it, and it has to manifest into a reality. So whatever we think and do, we become. I've discovered things about myself through horsemanship I never would have without horses. And
Yeah,
it's
same.
it's one of those beautiful things that we're sharing with your listeners that is discoverable. It's unique between them and their horse. They get to discover, the person gets to discover a depth in themselves and in this universe that they otherwise wouldn't. Horses are guides. I wrote a book. It's called A Horse to Guide Me. And when at the time I wrote that book, I didn't even have the knowledge or the wisdom I have today.
If you guys are like me, you love a good book, and Justin's book is a great book to read, to learn these concepts, and also to just keep on hand and reference some of these ideas so that you can take them away and implement them in your life. This is knowledge he's acquired after lots of time with lots of people and lots of horses, and it is a wealth of information. You can get it on Amazon. It is called A Horse to Guide Me, Build the Life You've Always Wanted Through the Miracle of Mustang Horsemanship. And I guarantee you that if you follow these principles that he outlines in this book, you will not only have a great relationship with your horse, you will also make changes and improvements to your life. So check it out.
The second book I'm working on, it'll have even more.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of learning something and sharing. That's the breathing in and giving out.
Yeah.
And that's what these podcasts are beautiful for doing. And I thank you for doing this, Shalyce, for offering a platform for me to share and you
Yeah,
taking the
absolutely.
time and energy out of your day to do this for people. Anybody who's made it through this podcast this long, this is a beautiful gift. And it's to be really recognized as a gift. And you're going to take what you hear here on her podcast today and the podcast in the past and the podcast in the future. And you're going to apply some of the things in your horsemanship, in your life, in those 5 areas of your life are going to become better. It just can't be any other way.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to what you said about, openness and being open to the possibility and what is okay and what is beneficial. It made me think of, you just did another podcast yesterday, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah,
with
I got a new
someone.
name. Did you see the name they gave me?
What's that?
Zen Cowboy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, nice.
I love it.
I did see that now that you say that, but one thing I noticed was that she was saying, like, she never thought it sounded like came from a much more traditional background from one of the disciplines. And she was saying she never thought she would find someone that looked like you talking about the things that you did. Um, and so, yeah, it's just interesting to explore that openness. And I think the trickiest part of that is sometimes we don't even realize that we're not open.
I tell you, I have friends in the horse world that most people would never think I'm friends with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll mention one of my friends' names because I really admire her. She's a very beautiful spirit. And her name is Anna Twinney. And she's an animal communicator. And she has abilities and gifts that most people probably will never explore to find it if they have them.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing when you can open to different perspectives and hear other people's perspectives and not put a judgment to it, not judge it as like, oh, they're wrong or that's woo woo or that doesn't make any sense. Because I'm here to say everyone's at different levels, everyone's at different classes of understanding. And you may come across some information at some time in your life and you don't understand it. And you
Yeah.
may have a triggered response to it and you don't enjoy it. But it's okay. Hold on to what is good, what you think is valuable, and open to it and let it come as it comes. So why I say that is there was a time when I heard someone talking about animal communication, I just was like, huh, that's weird. I never thought about that. And then I'd get exposed to other people with opinions of, oh, that's bad, that's wrong, that's blah blah blah, whatever, garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would look at their perspective and go, well, okay, they're coming from that, so maybe I should not think like that, but at least analyze why they think like that, and let's look at it from their perspective. And then you read in like ancient text, scripture, the Bible. King Solomon, man, he could talk to animals. He had 40,000 horses and 12,000 stable managers to manage the horses. I mean, it's like there's something to this animal communication. I have come to the understanding I have the ability to communicate with animals. It's different than Anna. It's different than another person that I know does animal communication. However, we all need those perspectives to come in to develop a larger understanding of what is the universe.
Yeah.
And when we can love rather than judge, we can look at it from a whole new perspective. We can say, yeah, they're just as valuable in this as I am. The horses need them just as much as they need me. I'm not above them. I'm not below them. I am equal to them in the bringing the perspective back to the one for more wisdom of the all. I mean, it's a beautiful thing when you can open your mind and your heart in an understanding
Yeah.
to gather or to attract, I should say, information that otherwise is not accessible to us. We're not
Yeah.
vibrating at that frequency to draw it in.
Yeah.
And the world that we live in, the society that we live in, they don't have access to horses. We've already discussed this. So the numbers
Right.
show they don't have access to this. And we, as horse people, light workers in the horse world, it's kind of our responsibility to share this with people that don't have access so that they could maybe look at it from a perspective and then get access. And then the horse community can grow into what I envision it being,
Yeah.
which is love and light, and harmony and agreement with
Yeah.
nature, to where a war would be out of the question. Humans would not want to go create war fighting machines to go kill each other. That would just be so out of the question. I mean, horses would never do that to they would never build a nuclear bomb to just wipe them out. They don't think in those realms. Now, they want betterment for their herd. There's vibrational frequencies that they understand that are not what's going to promote the herd and is not going to enhance the herd, and they deal with that accordingly. And humans will too. But in the evolution, in the growing, in the ascension, in the consciousness, those struggles and those things are equally as important to go
Yeah.
through. So I'm hopeful that people will start ascending consciously where, animal abuse goes away. The horse rescue
Yeah.
is non-existent. It's like, what? We don't need that. Why do we have that? Those things are just, they're out of the question. If someone's, needing a situation where a horse needs a home, there will readily be a person to step up and go, oh, yeah, I'm capable. I'm ready. I've got my 5 areas of my life under, we'll call it control
Yeah.
to make it possible. And so that's a good message for today in our conversation is there's one thing. There's 360 degrees of perspective of that one thing. There's pluralities of that one thing. And there's different classes and different levels of that one thing. So, when I talk about classes, you can't look at light as day and night and put it in the class of hot and cold. It doesn't get more hot and then it gets more dark. Those type things, they don't cross over. They're just different classes. So people are in different classes in that understanding. You're not going to have an 80-year-old guy, running marathons like a 20-year-old guy can. It's a different class, but they're
Yeah.
the same. They're both people. They both have something to bring into that oneness as a perspective. And that's probably a loose, large analogy to try to make a point of where we're all interconnected. Horse, human, earth, all of this is in harmony and balance, nature. And whenever we can be open to the many different possibilities of life bringing us something of value, and we hold on to what is valuable and let go what is not, then we're not going to see the horse community evolve into what I think it can,
Yeah.
bring a lot of light into dark areas of humanity. And the reason that I'm touching on this is because that's what I do at American Mustang School. I have people that come, they're in a dark place. They're not broken. They're not unworthy of receiving good things in life. There definitely are. They've just got into a mental state, kind of like water goes to ice or water goes to steam. They're in a different state. That's all. They're in a different
Mm,
mental, physical, and spiritual state. And
yeah.
they've got to ascend, come out, go into the light, come out of the darkness. And man, this podcast is really cool because we've got to sprinkle over a lot of
Yeah.
topics.
We did cover a lot of ground that,
And maybe this is the entry to our series,
yeah.
and we could put it out and ask people what they would like to explore more depth of, and get some feedback,
Yeah.
and shed some light on different topics.
Yeah. No, that would be good. That definitely covers a lot. I have a lot of notes that I made throughout of things that we can talk about more.
Because I want that for our Mustang community. I want
Yeah.
that for our people that have a passion and a purpose to fulfill through horsemanship, of
Yeah.
bringing this light into the world through horsemanship. Because there's going to be a lot of people standing in line at a lot of Mustang facilities wanting this value, wanting this. I'm speaking from what I know about. I got lines at my facility. There's people always calling, always scheduling, always
Hmm.
wanting to come and experience this.
Yeah.
And it's very valuable, and it's not accessible. So I would
Mm.
love to see people start Mustang facilities to spread what we've talked about in this podcast. And if
Yeah.
anybody is inclined to do so, and they want us to elaborate on some specifics, please reach out to Shalyce or myself and ask, let us know. Because this platform, this mechanism, podcast mechanism, is a beautiful mechanism of
Yeah.
getting information out there
Yeah.
for people
Absolutely.
to have access to it. And if they're vibrating at a frequency, they're going to attract this frequency we're sharing, and it's going to happen. And it's only going to benefit in this game of life.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I have lots of thoughts on everything still, and lots of stuff to even just take in. You frame stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it sounds so simple the way you say that, and I know that that's true, but it's so hard to implement sometimes, or to like kind of put a barrier up from all those forces that are working in the other direction from the way that you want to go. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think that that is a really good kind of overview of a lot of the things you've been working on, a lot of the things that I think that I've also found to be beneficial with horses, and even talking about a horse community versus the industry. I know, like, it's an intimidating place to go into a horse community because there are so many strong opinions. But I think knowing that there's people out here that kind of have a deeper understanding of what horsemanship really is, which is not, I would not say, controlling your horse. I think it's something deeper. I think that's something that I would have been like so happy to have found sooner, or to, have grown up believing in. But for me, it was definitely like, I don't know if I want to be around horse people. They seem really judgy about the way that you do things. I think some people are, but I'm finding that there's more and more people who are really just wanting to dig in and understand the horse better, and to like embrace the other people who have this same draw to horses. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.